Hello and welcome everybody to today's session on Z-Access TV, where we talk with thought leaders and women who are making a positive difference in the world, taking on big challenges and doing great things to make things better. And today I have the absolute pleasure of introducing you to Sue Dymond, and let me give you a little bit of background. But hello, Sue.
Hi, how are you, Leah? Thank you for having me on.
Yes, I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. And of course, if you're joining us live on LinkedIn or Facebook, then do let us know in the comments. And if you have questions, do pop them in and we'll do our best to either answer them live or come back afterwards and make sure that you are taken care of. And my name is Leah Zallams, and I'm the host of Z-Access TV, where, as I said, we talk about important things, success skills, business skills, and explore the ways that different business leaders and women in community are making a difference. And today we have Sue Dymond, who is committed to making a difference and enhancing lives. And she's the founder and CEO of iDareU, which is a business that is passionate about community, inclusion, and people with disability, and empowering them to live a life, a big life, and a loving life, and with dignity and respect. So we're going to hear a little bit of Sue's story today. She's the mum of two amazing women. Chloe, her youngest, is 30 years old and has Down syndrome. And Sue, you've never settled for mediocrity. And the same has been true for your daughter. So, and then you've also overcome your own challenges in life with having a stroke, a severe stroke in 2003. Learning to walk again and managing ongoing pain and fatigue. And you've also written a fabulous book, so we'll dive into that. But that's, yes, so removing the fear of raising a child with a disability, Raising Miss Chloe. So welcome, Sue.
Thank you so much, Leah. And again, thank you for inviting me to come along and talk to everybody out there in Cyberland.
Yes. And so let's get started, Sue. That's in your own words. Tell us a little bit about what iDareU is about, how it came about, and how you serve people through that business.
iDareU is very much a grassroots organisation, although we actually created it to be company limited by guarantee rather than incorporated association, because I'm a bit of a big dreaming person. So I'd like to see iDareU go international, not just within the state. I expected that within the first year, but reality kicked in. iDareU actually stands for inspiring people with a disability through awareness, resources, empowerment, and unity. As you mentioned, Leah, I have a daughter who has a disability, and as we were talking offline, I was saying that when I realised that my daughter was born, when I found out Chloe had Down syndrome, I made a promise and a vow to myself and to her that she was not going to live with me for the rest of my life, and she was going to have to be the best person she can possibly be, and that became, I guess, my journey. I had done a lot of volunteer work for 20 years, actually, even after Chloe was born, with troubled teens, and because I was a troubled teen, and I learned to give back, and that was about the same, teaching people how to become their best, to lead their best lives, and that to me that's what drives me. That's what gets me out of bed in the morning. iDareU came about because originally it came about because I was a person with teaching, helping Chloe to have her best life. I also come from outback Queensland, and I was brought up in the bush where we all whether we liked each other or not, we had to support each other. And I've got this really strong ethic that a village raises a child, not an individual raises a child. And I do not come from Victoria, which is where I live now. So I had to get natural supports myself. I had a mix right from early days of having Chloe incorporated into the people in our local environment. She's fortunate, her sister's 10 years older. Chloe was just seen always as Chloe, Shannon's little sister, not as Chloe, the person who has Down syndrome. And we also use services. Now, I spent many years fighting the services because I felt that the standard was not high and their expectations sat with the standards. They were very low, that there's an expectation of what an individual can do depending on what disability they have. And I didn't agree with that. I decided that it would be great because I realized what was happening, and where I felt different was I enjoyed Chloe. Chloe's not a burden. Chloe's not my lot in life, and I do not in any way, shape or form feel guilty about having a child with a disability. Many people, my ex-husband used to say, I'm really worried about Chloe going out in the world. And I went, I'm really worried about the world with Chloe going out in the world. I'm not worried about Chloe. I'm worried about, oh my goodness. So I wanted people to learn how to have a good life and have the life they need to live and see their loved one as not an equal, but just as a person to love, not because of their disability. And I don't know if that makes sense. Therefore, we got together and I decided I was going to have a for-profit, because then it would be something for Chloe after I'm gone to be able to be disabled. Because my fear has always been that she needs to be government-proof for after I'm gone. She needs to live the life, the quality of life she's living now has to happen after I'm gone. Sadly, this was 7 years ago. It was just at the inception of the NDIS. And one of the things that before the NDIS that was happening was you could not be a for-profit and be working in the disability sector. Councils ignored you, governments ignored you, for-profits weren't in the disability sector. So therefore, very begrudgingly and I'll even say to this day, I wish we weren't a not-for-profit, but at that stage we had no choice going into the sector we're going into. And
so you're a for-profit, not a not-for-profit.
No, I wanted to be a for-profit.
Right. But if you did, then NDIS wouldn't support you. You wouldn't be able to take it. Yeah.
No, NDIS was not around then. NDIS changed that. That was one of the massive changes that's happened with the NDIS. If we'd waited a few years, we could have come in as a for-profit.
Right.
But at that time, before the NDIS, disability services had to be not-for-profit. There were no for-profits in the sector. And we were right on that edge. And because of the way we set ourselves up, because we're a not-for-profit charity limited by guarantee and we have DGR status, to try to undo that is just convoluted. So we do the best with what we have, the structure we have. I had to get my head around the fact that not-for-profit is not about not making profit, that it's about having the money going back into the business. Because I had the mindset, well, if we're not for profit, we've got to be for free. That was a massive. That was a big learning.
My experience often is that passion and mission-driven businesses often they become a not-for-profit, and it is because it is very much a social responsibility mission. And I too, but you can't do your work without money. You can't and so it's and yet for profits, and I guess what we see with just like there is the greed and the different mindset around what the purpose of a business is all about. But I guess bringing that back to you, Sue, what is your biggest challenge in getting your message and your teachings out to the people who need it? iDareU, does it provide education? Does it provide services? What does it, and who does it actually serve directly?
iDareU provides education, provides training, and provides information and one-to-one support with people who either have a disability or are family members or nominees with people with disability. We do, because we came out at that same stage as the NDIS, and of course we had to go on, my daughter had to go on to the NDIS, and I found a massive gap there, and that was called communication. In disability sector, and I'm sure it's in others as well, the service providers and the government have their language. The problem is, so do the carers and the people with disabilities, and you may as well be talking French to a German person because they don't actually talk the same language. So therefore, and most people who are carers or who are unpaid carers or family members or people with disabilities, we're not going to sit there and go, listen, I know I sound dumb, but I've got no idea what you're talking about. We normally just sit there and nod and then walk away going, got no idea what that was about. So therefore, we saw the gap that we needed to inform people and interpret. We do a lot of that today, and we do a lot of work supporting people to understand what the NDIS is really telling them, not the words that are being used, understand how to use anything about NDIS, how to use their portal, how to become self-managed, how to look after some of their stuff themselves, how to write goals instead of mission statements. There's a difference there. One's passion. How to anything.
Well, the passion has to drive the goal, doesn't it? Right? And this is a lot of the work that I do with leadership development and articulation of specifically where you want to go, how you're going to get there, and why it matters to you. And I think you're absolutely right, Sue, that the goal is not the mission. The goal is the outcome. The goal is really the vision, isn't it? You
Yes.
know, of what is going to be made possible when you fill this gap, when that person is educated and embodies that knowledge, because knowledge is power when you know how to use it. Knowledge is not power if you don't know how to use it, right?
Exactly.
So that's what I'm hearing. And so do people pay you for these services, or how does your business get funded?
Blood, sweat and tears. So yes, we are a fee for organisation with doing the support in that way, purely because we made a conscious decision, and this is not wise, just for all out there, this is not a wise decision, but sadly it's where my ethics stand from my journey. We made a decision that we were not going to be funded by the government or the NDIS to keep the lights on. Therefore,
and also, can I ask what caused you to make that decision?
Two things. One is we don't want to be accountable and be tied up in red tape. The thing we've found in my journey, one of the biggest issues with organisations that are funded to exist, they're accountable to the funder, not to the client. And that was always an issue. It means that the client really does not get that work. They don't get cared for in the way they're meant to. We are there for the person that we're working for, and that's it. We are that.
Okay, so would that person then get funding from NDIS in order to use your services?
They can get funding through the NDIS to use our services. In saying that, the other reason, let me just say before I move on, the other reason that we did not want to do that is it makes you a very vulnerable organisation, because when that government pulls the plugs on those fundings, if that's what you've been relying on to keep the lights on, your lights turn off. And I think it's, it's great at the time, it's easy, but boy, oh boy, every day you're thinking, oh, what's a change of government going to do? Oh, what if the budget's low? You're relying on outside sources for the ongoing of your organisation, and I think it's a risky place for anybody to be. That's what my experience has been. But in saying that, getting back to what we were talking about before, we do get some funding from grants or from local, or state or local government to do particular projects. We have with what you're asking, one of our other things that we sell or that we offer information sessions for unpaid carers. And just for those who are not sure what I'm talking about here, a carer is generally the person that doesn't get paid to look after a person with disability. A support worker is the person that is paid.
Okay, so a carer is often a member of family. So they don't get, there's no line item in NDIS for a carer.
Might add, that's been the case even before the NDIS, but a lot of people get confused and call carers all sorts of things. But technically, a carer is a family member or a partner or whatever that's not being paid to care for somebody. The unpaid carers can get stuck on a real hamster wheel style thing, so that it's very hard for them to separate themselves from the person they're caring for. It gets
I want to dig into that a bit, Sue, because when we were talking offline, I think that was a really pertinent point you made about your own experience of how you decided to raise Miss Chloe. And so talk about that distinction from your perspective of the I think you called it like the rescuing attitude, the feeling that you are the rescuer of the person with the disability, and how that impacts your behavior, and just what was that decision point that you made in those early days?
Very early days. I made a decision, and as I mentioned to you, Leah, before, and this might be hard for people to hear, so I'll just warn you, if you don't want to hear it, shut your ears, but it's my journey. I'd never wanted to keep a baby who had Down syndrome. I wasn't a very nice person, and I'm very comfortable in admitting that. Chloe's made me a decent human being. If there's one gift she's given me, it's the gift of being a decent human being. But in saying that, when I told my doctor, when my doctor had to tell me, after me telling him every month I wasn't going to take home someone who had Down syndrome, and he realised...
So you knew in your pregnancy?
No. If I'd known in my pregnancy, I would have been fear-driven and I would not be talking to you today. I can promise you of that. And I actually work hard in that area now to say, when we know before pregnancy all these tests, we need to get equity around information, so a informed decision can be made, not a decision on fear. But that's a different story for a different day. Getting back to this one, when I got informed that my daughter, that Chloe was suspected of Down syndrome, I looked skywards, and I'm not religious, but I looked skywards and said, all right, you so-and-so, if you give me a challenge, I'm going to take it on, but she's not going to live with me for the rest of my life. That was where it started. From there, I have spent every day of our lives teaching Chloe how to be, and not only an independent adult, but also teaching her to be separate to me. We don't have, which happens a lot with unpaid carers, we don't have that enmeshment. My identity is not around Chloe. Chloe's identity is not around me. Although sometimes I'm sad to say, people do say to me, oh, you're Chloe's mother. Going, no, I'm Sue. Thank you. But yes, and I didn't have the guilt. And it's very complicated. It's very meshy particularly when you're a parent of a person with a disability, because there is so much that happens. And unless you get real help with it, it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't go anywhere. It stays. And sometimes it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger within until we don't know where we are. We lose ourselves completely.
I think this plays into your awareness piece here, that the awareness, we can only make different decisions, conscious decisions, sometimes scary decisions, when we have awareness and when we have support. So something that was clear to you led you to make very different decisions than someone who is not aware of the implications of being enmeshed, of that like absolute codependence, that the rescuing behavior. And often, and again, it's not just women, is it? But often the mother takes the primary role here. Is that sort of usually, in your experience, what you're saying, what you're seeing?
That's
as well?
absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. The parent, and this is not always, obviously, but I find that, yeah, the mums, well, we're the main primary carers of even not just children, parents. We seem to be a primary carer for whoever has a disability. But the dads, it's interesting because the mums get into protection and the dads get into fixing, the practical. And that's not in every case, but it's a real commonality. The dads are solving problems, the mum's trying to not rescue, but to protect. I guess maybe the word. So yeah, you're right. You have to have acceptance. You have to acknowledge first. And a lot of people don't even acknowledge. There's shame issues. There's all sorts. Everything. It's very, as I said, it's very complex. But you need to recognize what you're feeling. You need to get help for that. Then you need to accept. And they're all big things. And then you're able to action. But you need to trust. You need to actually go against maternal instinct. I was talking about this before. You know, my maternal instinct is to answer Chloe's questions and make life easy for her. But my reality, if I want to make her an independent woman, or as independent as she can be, is that she needs to learn to figure things out for herself. She needs to be comfortable with failing and know that it's okay to fail. She needs to, at one stage, she wanted to learn to drive. And I thought, oh, God help all of us now, because she's, you know, people with Down syndrome are not the fastest reflexes on earth. And that's a pretty common thing. But not only that, she couldn't read or write. And I said, honey, before you learn to drive, you better learn to read, because you've got to read all these signs. We went and got her the learner's manual, and she spent 2 years writing out. Her writing improved enormously, just writing out the manual. I will say there was about 45 exercise books. Her writing improved to a point where she can recognize things, and she's semi-competent.
The power of a goal. She wanted something. Wanted something, and if this was the way, this is what needs to be done.
And I say that to people all the time. If you want your child to learn anything, find out what their passion is, because it's not about reaching the passion, it's about that journey. Because after 2 years, she came to me and said, I don't want to learn to drive anymore. I can't see properly. The things she learned in that 2 years is still with her and were astronomical. So I say to anyone, no goal is too big, because it's not about technically reaching the goal. It's about what you're learning and gaining towards the goal. And that includes, may I say, me wanting to go overseas with my business. Who knows? It might not be in my lifetime, but I'm still working towards it.
So on that note, Sue, how do people know about you? So how do carers know that you are there with programs and support to make their lives and their loved ones' lives better? How does that work in your business?
We've got a really, really good reputation, and because what we do is very different to any other service, because we're filling a gap. So we do a lot of gap filling and language, for example. Mainly the way that people find out about us is, dare I say, word of mouth. It's really interesting.
I think word of mouth has just taken on like life on steroids now. Yeah. With the impacts of the pandemic we've just gone through, and the everyone going online for everything. So like the mass production of different courses and programs, and our education system is never going to be the same again. And there was some, and so this is where I think, who do you trust? You're going to trust someone who refers you. It's like how we came about, right? With Katrina being a common friend, and she was so passionate about us connecting. And I'm so glad that she persisted, and we found time now to come together, because
it's been a while. We
exactly,
got there.
and good things do take a while, right?
They do.
Often as well. But the word of mouth is one way that people get to know about you. But what would be some of your top two challenges in your business? Do enough people know about you, for example?
Can I jump back a little bit? Because as well as word of mouth, and it is massive word of mouth with us, with professionals as well as people with disability and their families, that we have got a really good reputation. It's also through social media. There's a lot of forums out there on social media, and we are mentioned a lot in those forums of a go-to. We do have our website. We've only please go and have a look at it. It's www.idareu.org.au. We just relaunched it last week, and I'm pretty proud of it. There's a fair bit of blood, sweat, and tears in it.
.org.au.
Yes. And we also do our own socials, our social medias and our LinkedIns. But it's generally, it's a good question. What is one of our biggest difficulties? As I mentioned offline, I'll be honest and say, being a company limited by guarantee, and getting a board, especially even though we're 7 years old, we're still startup, we're tiny, because we don't actually have the funding to keep the lights on, and therefore any revenue we're getting associates costs with it. But we're at a point right now where we're needing to move up. We're getting our pants. We're about a size 20 in size 14 pants, and we're feeling it. Oh my God! But we've got that chicken and egg where we don't have the funds, but we don't have and we're also looking at creating new programs. So for us, it's that getting ourselves the right people on a board that are going to be passionate as well, and be able to open doors or bring in or help with skills, and understand that when you're in a startup, a board needs to be a little bit more hands-on than when you're fully established. And we're going from that stabilizing into growth now. And that's been one of our biggest challenges. And even though our boards have changed over time from a group of passionate with no skills, and then developed into a board that has people that have got amazing skills, but maybe not as much capacity. So it's finding that balance. That's probably our most challenging thing.
Yes, and then there's the people as resources, and then what about the money? The money it takes to hire in the resources that can actually build the courses and make that happen faster, and do more on social media. And that's the big difference I see. So I do a lot of work with female founders, and the ones who have managed to get like a big whack of money, either through corporate donation or grant monies, it's like being able to it's the speed to action, right? If you've got more money up front, then you can get the material out and get the launch done on a much bigger scale to get bums on seat, and it is a chicken and egg. And this is where it then becomes another decision about what you do with the available resources, and then face the reality of what that actually means to your growth potential, right? And then I believe that will strengthen your pitch argument to whoever you're speaking to. And I think, and then that's also then the balance of, what does that mean for being, how much freedom you have in terms of how you spend that money as to where that money comes from. But do you sort of think the change of government now is going to help you?
Change of government is definitely going to be helpful for us, particularly in the area that we're working in, and we're noticing changes already. And I agree with what you were saying there. It is that matter of finding the funds And what's a challenge too, and anyone who's looking at starting up, I'll warn you of this. Governments and people who give away funds like to give away funds to people that they know. So they normally give away funds to organisations that are very, very well established and may not quite need as much funds as what they're receiving, whereas they tend to, there's very low risk capacity when it comes to giving grants to do that tip over, which I think is a bit sad because they're keeping a lot of the big organisations ticking along, but they're not giving small ones a chance to come in. But then, in a way, but that's just an observation. And we're getting, you know, we get little grants, and that's fantastic. But with what you were saying, can you just repeat? It was about.
Yeah, just about the conditions that the funding is given, right? And so, you know, it's like, so if the corporate gives you money because, you know, they want to support, it also ticks their, you know, corporate social responsibility. It's, you know, there's lots of different reasons that different organizations will want to support you. And so I guess that's the balance that you were talking about before, about not wanting to be beholden, whether it be to a government or to, you know, like people providing you with funding support. But, you know, unless you've got very deep pockets yourself, or, you know, I don't know, got lucky, you know, in blockchain, you know, before this year. I mean, you know, this is the whole thing. There's so much sort of hype and excitement in some markets, and then there's other environments, like the work that you do, Sue, that are so fundamental to basic human dignity, as you say, and the quality of life at a really fundamental level. And so, you know, I really hope that there is going to be more support to relieve some of that pressure of you spending time having to potentially find money, right? Because that's the other thing. It all takes time. You're either trying to pitch to get money to support you, or figure out what your content plan should be so that more people see you on social media. And then, you know, how can you attract the right board members and work with the board members to make sure that, you know, no stone is left unturned. So, you know, you are really doing so much more. Like, what is it that you're throwing above your weight? You know, what is that phrase that they say?
I'm starting to panic too. I'm getting onto, you know, I'm in the six zeros now. And I'm thinking, goodness gracious, I've got to keep going here. I've got to get this done and sorted before I go. But
we're just warming up in our.
I hear you.
That's why I love connecting, particularly with women like yourself, Sue, you've got so much phenomenal lived experience, and you're obviously an amazing communicator. And so that translates then into this material that actually is understandable by the people who need to be able to understand it, to know what government resources are available to them, how to access them, how to make the most of their own life and enable their loved ones who have the disability to live a full life and a life of dignity as well. And
once we get people with disability, or communities inclusive for people with disabilities, that automatically means that those communities are very inclusive for people who are aged. They're very inclusive for people who may be immigrants or coming from another country, because when we actually stop having our expectations and our standards high, because that's what makes disability, not the actual person. The person doesn't make disability. It's the barrier the height that we expect people to come to. And I think that's the thing that we need to change the mindset on. And the other thing too is, I get it a lot, and I'm always trying to educate people and businesses. and services that are not in disability sector. Disabled people are not over there. They're not over there. They might be next door to you.
Yeah.
I hear all the time, oh, we don't go there. We don't go there. Where is there? They and we are here. And they are a part of our community. And they don't need, lots of people with disabilities don't need lots of support, but every human being on earth needs to be a part of our community and not be seen to be separate just because we're not where people expect or are comfortable with us being.
Yes, that's that human need for belonging. And if we see inclusivity and we invite belonging, then we are less influenced by our judgments.
Yeah.
And I think, as you say, that's the big thing that needs to change, is how we see people who are not like us.
Yeah, and that's my dream. People with disabilities and families lead bigger and better lives when I teach all of you out there how to see people with disabilities as just people.
Oh, that's such a powerful note to close our session on today, Sue. We've hit the 30 minutes, and I think you've really hit on the key message here, and that is about all of us being inclusive and not and seeing sameness, not difference. And so if people want to know more and learn more, certainly the website, I've put the website up there as well. And now, how is the best way for people to connect with you?
I would say the easiest way would be the website, because we do have our email address. Do you want me to give the email address now?
Well, what I'll do is I'll put your LinkedIn connection here.
And we are, if you go into the website, you can also, if you feel you'd like to volunteer on any level, even if it's helping out a sausage sizzle, hint, hint, or helping our mark, we are looking for volunteers. We are a little bit light on when it comes to the people that are actually there's a few people doing a lot, and I want it to be a lot doing few.
Yes.
So please don't ever think something's too hard, too easy, too less, too whatever. Give us a yell if you think that you'd like to volunteer in any way, shape or form, from being a board member completely through to, coming and putting stickers on our homemade jams that we make to sell as a fundraiser, as well as, helping us with funding and all sorts of things. It was interesting, I know this is the end, but just what you said before, we actually know that we can stand alone, but we need seed funding to jump us into that next. We're not looking for lights on funding, but we need seed funding to be able to go to that next level.
Well, if there is people that can help out or want to know more or want to explore more, please do connect with Sue. If you've got questions, do pop them in the comments below, and we'll definitely come back and make sure that you are taken care of. And Sue, I really want to thank you for your time today and the amazing work and the amazing perspective that you have and you share and you teach, and the difference that you are making to your daughter and your community. And show us your first book again. Is this the first book you've written?
This is the first I've written. I'm all back to front. Can you see that?
So, Raising Miss Chloe. So that's Chloe there with you.
This is Chloe here. Yes.
Oh, how gorgeous!
She's now she's a jewelry maker and has her own website. So she actually has her own business now.
Wow.
Little Miss Chloe. Yes. And just for you out there, Chloe doesn't have Down syndrome. If you ask her, she comes from Down syndrome. So she's just from a different country.
I love that perspective. Oh, there's so much more to explore, Sue. So, but we've opened we've tapped the mountaintop today, and so there's a big journey that's been, and an even bigger one that's on its way as well.
Absolutely.
So thank you very much, Sue, and thank you everybody for joining us.
Thank you everybody for listening in. I hope it was helpful, and thank you, Leah, for thinking of me.